COVID-19 pandemic has significantly added to the challenges faced by already strained education systems across the country. It is no exaggeration to say that the world is at crossroads, now more than ever, calling for institutions and governments to work with teachers to protect the right to education and guide it into the unfolding landscape brought about by the pandemic. Now, on the 5th of every October every year, World Teachers' Day is celebrated across the globe. This year, the world celebrates teachers with the theme Teachers Leading in Crisis, Reimagining the Future. Now, the day provides the occasion to celebrate the teaching profession worldwide, take stock of achievements, and draw attention to the voices of teachers who are at the heart of efforts to attain the global education target of leaving no one behind. Now, on this special forum, we get to discuss these critical issues and I'm your host here at KTN News. My name is Brenda Zedaradido. Once again, welcome to the program. Allow me to say Happy Teachers' Day on this important day when we celebrate the most important people in our society, the men and women who hold the chalk and to ensure that we are who we are today. Now, I need to introduce you to our panelists who will be having this discussion with us. And let's begin with Dr. Evelyn Njoka, who is the current Secretary General and a CEO of the Kenya National Commission for UNESCO State Corporation. She has previously served the government as a secondary school teacher and headed 2 secondary schools in Embu County. She has widely researched and published education materials and has in the past supervised a number of postgraduate students at Kenyatta University as an external supervisor. She holds various academic accolades, including a doctorate degree in education from the University of Durham, United Kingdom. Now, our next guest is Dr. Ruben Ndamburi Muguku, was appointed Director, Quality Assurance and Standards at the Kenya Teachers Service Commission, that is TSC. Dr. Muguku is the immediate former Deputy Director, Basic Education and Learning at the Kenya National Commission for UNESCO. Now, previously, he served as a Deputy Director, Basic Education and Senior Assistant Director, E-Learning at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, that is KICD. Now, he holds various academic accolades, including a Doctor of Philosophy degree in Educational Communication Technology from Moi University. That is the bio of my next guest. Now, the other guest that we have in the studio this morning is Saidu Jallow, and he's currently the Senior Education Specialist at the UNESCO Regional Office for Eastern Africa, Nairobi, covering 13 countries of Eastern Africa since 2018. Prior to his posting to Eastern Africa Regional Office, Saidu served in the same capacity at the UNESCO Regional Office for West Africa, Abuja, Nigeria, for 6 years. He had also served for 2 years at the Regional Bureau for Education in Africa, that is Breda, Dakar, Senegal, from 2009 to 2011. Dr. Jallow's career spans decades of work in education, ranging from high school subject teacher to teacher trainer, academia, education sector management, a public policy maker, and international education development. It is a balanced panel, having a teacher and also having education as a specialist when you're talking about matters of teachers here in the country. And finally, also joining us for this fundamental forum is Abdi Habat, who is a director and seasoned teacher in charge of teacher training colleges. That is our final guest here on during this special forum. When you're talking about matters teachers during this World Teachers' Day every year, 5th of October, the world comes together to celebrate these important people in our society. This conversation, and I'll begin with Dr. Evelyn Njoka. And Daktari, when you talk about World Teachers' Day, what is World Teachers' Day all about?
Thank you very much, Brenda. The World Teachers' Day was declared a day to celebrate teachers by the UNESCO, by the United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization in 1994, and the day also commemorates the anniversary of the adoption of the 1966 ILO and UNESCO recommendation concerning the status of teachers. And the recommendations set benchmarks regarding the rights and responsibilities of teachers and standards for their initial preparation and further education. So basically, the day is set to celebrate teachers, to recognize their efforts in teaching and learning, and is observed every day on 5th October.
Talking about this important day of World Teachers Day. Thank you so much, Daktari. We've had your side when it comes to explaining to us why this day is very important. But then let me bring in Dr. Jallo just to talk to us about this important day. Why is this day so significant to over, 3 million teachers globally?
Thank you very much, the moderator, Anchor. The question, why is Teachers' Day important?
All right. Jallo, kindly hold on. Just kindly hold on to your sentiment as we try to sort out your mic. Let me just go back to Dr. Njoka, who's talking to us about this World Teachers' Day. And Daktari, the importance of this day, we've talked about it, but how significant is this day? Because it's also coming at a time when teachers are wondering what is there to celebrate about, because some of us have lost our jobs during this time of COVID-19. Some of us have been infected by the coronavirus.
Thank you very much. This year's theme is Teachers Leading in Crisis, Reimagining the Future. And in the context we are in of COVID-19, we know education has been affected most. And our schools have been closed since basically March 12th, when the schools and all education institutions in Kenya were closed. And we know that teachers have been doing their best to keep in touch with their learners remotely, and we know they have struggled very much. We know the essence of learning, the challenges the learners have had. Also noting that actually not all learners have been accessing education. So looking at teachers today, and they are really going to play a critical role as far as recovery of education is concerned in this country. And it's no wonder, indeed, the theme of this year's One Teachers' Day is that, teachers must lead in this crisis, and they must reimagine, actually, the future of teaching and learning, which is very, very critical for our children. So that teachers are very, very critical when it comes indeed to the post-COVID recovery strategies, and especially, of course, in learning and teaching of our children.
And just before we break it down now, just hold on your thoughts to, the impact of COVID-19 with teachers, as much as the theme is based on that, because we shall be delving into that later on. But when you look at the Sustainable Development Goal, the SDG 4, one of the target is primary and secondary education. And when you talk about this, you're talking about in terms of enrollment of the teacher-pupil ratio. We're also talking about, the number of classrooms for the for the students and the pupils, both at the primary and the secondary school. So as we speak right now, Daktari, do you think as a country, Kenya, you know, within the East African region, has achieved the SDG 4.1?
No, and although the region is trying, we know that even before COVID-19, the countries in Africa were struggling indeed to reduce the pupil-teacher ratio. We know that our classrooms have been quite congested, especially in public institutions. So it's quite a challenge, and I foresee that it's even going to be a bigger challenge given that a number of private schools have closed in the midst of COVID-19. So we are going to have public schools enrolling more learners. So this is a challenge that actually the governments worldwide, you know, need to deal with, and especially in Africa. I think this is a challenge that is very obvious when schools are open.
All right. Dr. Allow me to bring in Saidu Jallo, who's the Senior Education Specialist at the UNESCO Regional Office for Eastern Africa, Nairobi. And Jallo, we are talking about the importance of this day, World Teachers' Day, and the theme comes at a time also when the world is struggling with COVID-19. Schools have been closed, some teachers have lost their jobs, the students are learning virtually, but certainly some students cannot even afford education using technology.
Thank you very much. Yes, you will realize that during the closure of schools arising from the COVID-19 pandemic, you recall the schools have closed in, I think, March 12th, so in Kenya. And the governments have decided to use remote technology to deliver the curriculum. So this has been going on in many countries, including Kenya. Now, there are a range of solutions, platforms that could be used, that are being used, from radio, TV, broadcasts, right through to digital online platforms, as well as more advanced cloud computing technology. Now, these technologies are important, and they certainly will make sure that some students still continue learning. But the concerns there, the concerns that the issue that concerns government and development partners alike include the coverage of these infrastructures, these platforms. Are they available to all students? Are they available to all teachers? Where are the teachers located? And issues like that. So partners, UNESCO and the development partners mobilized the private sector information technology partners to work together with governments, support them to provide these solutions. And these partners did agree for the period of the pandemic to provide the solutions, the platforms, and other resources, digital resources available free of charge. So this is going on, work is going on towards this, and Kenya has benefited from this. Secondly, I think there's also the need to fill the infrastructure, the access infrastructure deficits, meaning access to the internet, access to energy, will affect the degree to which a learner or a teacher is able to access those platforms. to effectively teach. Now, in addition, even though there are governments, including Kenya, have a policy of one child, one laptop, and so on, the teachers also need laptops, and that we need to look at as well.
All right, and Gillo, Gillo, I was about to ask you, because you've put down a good structure on how teachers' welfare, both teacher and the students' welfare, can be taken care of, looked at during this time of COVID-19. But how achievable is the SDG 4 when it comes to matters to do with the welfare of teachers during this time of coronavirus?
All right. SDG 4, as you recall, calls on governments to provide inclusive, equitable, quality education and provide lifelong learning opportunities for all learners. That is going to be a big challenge. That is before 2030. And you realize that between now and then, we have only 10 more years to go. And I have identified some of these infrastructure deficits and some capacity gaps that teachers have experience in terms of availability, being able to use the platforms and the resources available on the platforms to teach and assess learning. You see, so I'd like to let you know that the post-pandemic, to address these issues along with others for the post-pandemic, I think the education community, international community, is planning to have a global education meeting to look at precisely those issues. Right. How do we make teachers be able to teach better? How can we able to provide learners quality education during this decade of action, which is the 10 years between 2020 and 2030? This is a decade of action. All right. And I think during this period, there will be governments may be called upon and development partners to invest more in education so that we'll be able to realize the education SDG 4, education 2030. All right.
So let me bring in Ruben.
Over.
Okay, let me bring in Ruben and Zamburi. And if you had, Mr. Jallo talk about ensuring that teachers have access to, technology so as to ensure that every student is taken care of in terms of continuous learning. But let me bring in a scenario over here. We're looking at teachers within the interior parts of this country, interior parts of Kenya, and they're not able to afford internet. They don't even have a good infrastructure known as a classroom. Some of them learn under trees. How are they going to ensure that learning continues even before schools are reopened?
Thank you, Brenda. I want to say that it is important that we all know that our best hope for learners is to learn. And the only person who has that hope for learners to learn is the teacher. And therefore, I want to say that teachers' well-being is paramount to building a workforce of compassionate change makers. Now, Brenda, when you talk about people in the reserve areas, in the interior, I think when we talk about issues of ICT, it is prudent that we begin to realize that it is not a question of only using internet. We are talking about even using the radio itself and the television. And even in the interior, Brenda, today, people are using batteries, car batteries, they are using solar power, they are using radios to be able to listen to different programs. And Kenya Broadcasting Service, KBC, always has a program on English service for broadcast service for schools. And the people in the interior can be able to utilize the radio programs that have been developed by the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development to be able to access learning that has been going on. And these programs have been going on since the time COVID started. And actually, our teachers have been involved in trying to explain the communities where they live how these programs are running. Timetables were distributed and all over, even hand copies were distributed on people to access radio programs, TV programs in those rural areas. And you have realized even in the rural areas, the TV coverage there is quite good. And so you may find a home with a TV or a radio. So when we talk about the issue of ICT, we need to realize that it is not a question of only thinking about the internet, because they may not be having the fiber optic cable or the internet connectivity may not be there, but there are other avenues like what we have been having, the radio programs, we have been having the TV programs, which learners have been able to utilize. And also realize there is what we call the community radios. During the period of the COVID season, the community radios were very effective in disseminating learning information even to the communities in their local languages. And therefore, much of the learners at the local level were able to get some of this program. Teachers, even in their local areas where they have been, were utilized to be able to teach and even teach on radio to make sure learners are kept engaged and they are disseminating information. So that is a plan that is there, Madam Brenda.
All right, and so, Daktari, you know, the impact of COVID-19 on educators, teaching and learning. And let's talk about, you know, some teachers now, COVID-19 being really tough on them. Some have turned to farming. Some have even turned the private schools into home cares, just as a way of making a living. How can these teachers be cushioned at this time when schools are reopening? Because bills have not been paid. Some are facing auctioneers.
I think, Brenda, going forward, it is true some of the private schools have closed. And what is happening is that the teachers that were teaching in those schools may have gone to do the many types of businesses that you have mentioned about. But you know, government has been very keen to make sure that there are different packages that are given so that even teachers can be able to benefit, even in those areas. And therefore, for example, say in Nakuru, the packages the government were giving, they were also being given to teachers. They were not being left out. And therefore, even during this period of the COVID-19, you know, Teacher Service Commission, all the teachers that are under Teacher Service Commission employment, all of them, they were always paid their salary. They were on a salary because it was deemed that they have been doing a number of things. One, they were sensitizing the communities. Two, they were involving learners in small ways. And a number of teachers were also doing a lot of online learning that was taking place. The board of governors teachers that are employed by the board of management, a number of them, because the schools did have money, the government ended up paying them, and the government has already paid money and the salaries for those teachers. So there are mechanisms that have been put on place, Madam Brenda.
All right, let me bring in Evelyn into this conversation. And Evelyn, because the focus has been more on when a school's reopening instead of how the schools are supposed to be reopening. And that is something that even President Uhuru Kenyatta stressed on last week during the COVID-19 conference. But let's look at the welfare of the teachers now, aside from the welfare of the students. Some teachers, you may agree with me, need a bit of some counseling because some are not even in a position to pay rent.
Yes, that's true. The welfare of teachers also needs to be looked at. As we, of course, they prepare for the reopening of schools, I think it's very key that government thinks about the welfare of teachers. It's true they shall need a lot of psychosocial support. And I must salute the Kenyan teachers. We have seen their resilience. A number of many have kept in touch with their learners, using their money to, some of them even to call them, using WhatsApp. And I appreciate all the methods that the government has put in place to ensure that actually remote learning continues. We did a situational analysis sometimes, I think 2 months ago, 2 or 3 months ago, and in Nairobi and Lamu. And it showed that teachers were making a lot of efforts to reach to their learners through their phones and WhatsApp groups. But however, many of them were stressed, worried about their students, and the fact that it has taken a long stay at home. And of course, they are looking forward to resuming a work.
All right. So, Jalo.
It is also, sorry.
Okay, just finish your statement. I need to bring in Jalo into the conversation.
Yes, yes. Of course, also, a number of them were also worried that they could not reach some of their learners because they are in the remote areas. So this brings in a new challenge of increased disparities. When schools open, there will be learners who are very diverse, and a lot of them will need interventions, which calls for extra efforts by teachers.
All right, and
thank you.
You're welcome. And you've just piqued my mind because there's a statement I wanted to read here, a part of the statement that was from a press release that was released yesterday by the Director General of UNESCO, that is Andre. It was a press statement that included also sentiments from the General International Labour Organization and also the Executive Director of UNICEF, and David Edwards, also the General Secretary of Education International. And Jalo, just kindly listen to this statement from these 4 gentlemen. And this is what they're saying, that we need to think beyond COVID-19 and work to build greater resilience in education systems so we can respond quickly and effectively to this and other crises. This means protecting education financing, investing in high-quality initial teacher education, as well as continuing the professional development of existing teacher workforce. And some of the third world countries are wondering, how can we do this? How can we finance teachers? Yet, different governments are also struggling financially because of COVID-19.
Yes. Thank you very much. I think the teachers have been impacted adversely, and they are in a very difficult position, like the earlier speakers and yourself, your able self, have highlighted. However, I think there is need really to pay attention to teachers. There is need for more investment by governments and development partners alike in education and in all aspects of education, for that matter, and to also ensure that national stimulus packages need to cater for teachers to enable them sort out all these other issues surrounding them that will adversely affect their performance as teachers. In this case, it's not only in terms of building their capacities to be able to handle the teaching and learning, but now we will, as we think about school reopening at the moment, there is also need to think about post-pandemic, the post-COVID-19. How are we going to teach? How are we going to ensure children learn and acquire and receive quality education from teachers? So there are a lot of investments that need to be made. The investments must be made going forward. I think there's no sugarcoating that one. The investments must be there, both from national domestic financing as well as international development partners, that ODA. These are all areas that we have to tap resources and target the resources when we do keep them together, we target them to the issues that are important in ensuring the education process takes place, and all the elements that enable that education, that process to take place are reinforced in terms of capacity and are remunerated in terms of financing, so that they are able to attend and focus on the job of teaching children, engaging them.
All right.
There's also a dimension that was mentioned earlier about psychosocial support. This is true for teachers as well as students, having stayed away for a long, long time, working from home, or children learning from home. It's quite taxing on us. We have the same. We feel the same problems, the same stresses that others face. But these are all things that could be addressed. Partners are already willing to provide platforms. Others are willing to provide the digitized content, covering psychosocial support for both teachers and learners. I think it's a matter of bringing this together very quickly, ensuring packages for psychosocial support, for example.
All right.
But in the medium term, meaning 3 years, 2-3 years going forward, we must, as a matter of policy, look at how we will strengthen the education systems.
All right.
Because the COVID has shown us that the systems are not strong. They are not flexible. So we need to fix that.
All right. And it's good you're talking about the systems, because even, Jalo, you will agree with me and also other panelists that the COVID-19, the coronavirus, has actually exposed the weakness of the education systems in different countries.
Right. Yes. Can I go ahead?
Yes, Jalo, go ahead.
All right, yes. In many countries in the developing world, the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed the weakness of the systems. They are not resilient. When schools are closed, we face challenges. We can cater for, even though valiant efforts were deployed by governments with the support of partners in some cases. In other cases, they went ahead, didn't wait for partners, because I know Kenya, as early as March, April, they were already doing classes, lessons on radio, TV, and on YouTube. This is fine, but in the long term, there must be, or in the medium term, there must be investments in education. I cannot underline this enough, that we need to organize that and make sure we are able to do that.
All right. All right. So, Ruben,
we need to mobilize partners and domestic financing to do that.
All right.
Over.
All right. So, Ruben, what is the new normal? What will be the new normal for teachers when schools reopen here in the country, just apart from social distancing, hand sanitizing, and wearing masks? And I'm just wondering how that social distancing will be possible in school, especially primary schools, because there's that close engagement between a teacher and a pupil.
Quite challenging, as you are saying. But one of the aspects that will be utilized is even to have open classes where teachers can be able even to have either tents outside or use the dining halls and be able to really try the best possible. But as it is with the infrastructure, there is the expansion of infrastructure which is going on. And we are hopeful that if this happens, then the issue of social distancing could be possible. But, Brenda, one of the things that is very critical is the issue of curriculum, because curriculum is the one that is very, very critical for how it will be covered. Looking at the lost time that we have got in, I think that is an area that is really supposed to be looked into. And also the question of the contact time because we have lost quite a bit on the contact time of the teacher. And I think as we return back, it will be very critical to find ways and modalities of trying to have how we can cover the lost timing and automatically utilizing all the kind of the strategies, the pedagogical strategies, the methodologies that can assist to make sure that we are able to have these things really put on board. Automatically, there is a lot of anxiety, there is a lot of fear, and there is a lot of isolation that has been there because teachers are also human beings, and they have the sense of the community, and trying to make them also be part and parcel of what is happening is very important. And automatically, teachers are the ones that make great contributions to the society today. And they will be very essential to the part of how we all recover from this period. Because the teachers are the core to almost every home. They have children going to school. So the way the teachers are going to be handling this issue of COVID-19 will be really a task. And as you know, there was very little notice to plan for a unit shift on how and what schools should do. And what you could observe is that Brenda and the members is that teachers and they showed themselves to be remarkably resilient and adaptable to the things that were happening. And therefore, going forward, we are really looking at the question of our teachers who will bring up resilience and creativity so that they can be able to stay and make sure they can contribute to meeting the challenges of the teaching, even when this issue of the pandemic is over. And therefore, it will be the question of how do they coordinate subjects, how do they coordinate the learning itself, how do they coordinate the school, so that they organize it in such a way that our learners are not going to be having challenges, and therefore the teachers will require a lot of critical thinking and creativity in order to be able to bring up these things, even to happen to our children. And so we are looking at the question of how this is going to be, and what is this new normal that our teachers will be able to innovate in order to be able to bring things to happen and make learning to really be a reality in our schools, Brenna.
And you know, Ruben, that is always asking you, what is this new normal, apart from wearing the mask, social distance and hand sanitizing? What will be the new normal for the teachers?
I think one of the new normals of the teachers is the question of even the use of the remote learning that has come on board. Because, and also the question of handling children outside the four walls of the classroom. Because what has been very keen is the question of how engaged are learners. And I think one of the things that the teachers have come up with creatively is that they can get communities of practice that can be utilized to make learners even learn better. And you know, many of the teachers were able to engage children even at their homes through online learning. Others were using the TV programs, others were using the radio programs. And I think this new normal that has come on board is showing, yes, teachers can be able to effectively engage our learners wherever they are, and they can be able to really get what is required in the learning. So I think as we look forward, is the question of looking at the new digital platforms that will help the teachers to send and mark work, and they can be able to stimulate the processes and engage learners in these new ways.
All right. And Dr. Evelyn, yes, we are talking about handling the students outside the four walls of the classroom, just what Ruben has talked about. But not so many students, pupils and teachers are privileged to have this outdoor learning in terms of even going technologically, or even in terms of moving from one home to another when it comes to teaching. And when I'm talking about this, I'm just referring to those teachers and pupils who are in the interior parts of this country, the rural areas.
I think you're asking in terms of observing the COVID-19 guidelines or the new normal.
Yes. Yes, I'm talking about the new normal, which Ruben is talking about, you know, handling students outside the four walls of the classroom.
Yeah, yeah. Again, well, it may be a challenge, but in the remote areas, I think even in the past, they could have, you know, learning outside. And even for other, you know, schools, not in the remote areas, also learning outside, of course, may bring some challenge. But this is the reimagining that we are talking about.
All right.
I think schools and the boards of management have to think of how best to ensure that you know, learners learn in a safe situation, which includes, I would imagine, even learning outside or putting up tents. Social distancing may be a challenge, for sure. But I want to believe that moving forward, the new normal will become a reality, so that I think learning can continue.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a short breather. When we come back, we shall be delving into, you know, that UNESCO report that talks about the number of countries who've closed schools, the number of children who are not in school, and also teachers who cannot go back to class because of coronavirus. But what is the role of teachers in ensuring that no child is left behind when it comes to education during this time of COVID-19? So we talk about that after the commercial break I'm taking right now.